In the heart of Rome, beneath the gilded dome of St. Peter's Basilica, there exists another power, one not crowned in gold, but shrouded in black. They call him the Black Pope, not because of his skin, but because of his power, hidden, silent, and feared. He does not sit upon the papal throne, yet whispers say he commands it from the shadows. His influence crosses continents, thrones, and centuries. And his soldiers, the Jesuits, swore an oath unlike any other in Christendom. This is the secret history of the Society of Jesus, an order born from faith, forged in obedience, and accused of mastering the dark arts of politics, espionage, and control. The year was 1540. Europe burned with division. The Protestant Reformation tore Christendom apart, Martin Luther's words echoing like thunder against the Vatican walls. The Catholic Church was bleeding, desperate to reclaim its lost souls. Then came a soldier, wounded, broken, and reborn, Ignatius of Loyola. Once a proud knight, now a man obsessed with divine purpose. He gathered a band of followers, not monks, but warriors of the mind and spirit. They vowed not to retreat, not to argue, but to obey, absolutely and without hesitation. Their oath was chilling in its precision, to go anywhere in the world to serve as the Pope commands, even into danger, even unto death. They called themselves the Societas Jesu, the Society of Jesus, and thus began the rise of an invisible empire. Unlike other orders, the Jesuits did not hide behind monastery walls. They infiltrated courts, advised kings, sailed with explorers, and built schools that molded generations of leaders. Their weapons were not swords but words, not armies but ideas. From the jungles of South America to the palaces of France, Jesuits became confessors, teachers, and spies, depending on what Rome required. Wherever they went, knowledge followed. And where knowledge spread, so did their influence. By the 17th century, their reach rivaled the Church itself. Some whispered that the Jesuit general, the so-called Black Pope, held more power than the Pope in white. Kings feared them. Philosophers distrusted them, and yet the Church could not do without them. The Jesuits built universities across Europe, converted millions in Asia and the Americas, and defended the Church's doctrines with unmatched brilliance. But their success came with a price: suspicion. Rumors spread like wildfire of manipulation, assassinations, and secret agendas. Some claimed they orchestrated the fall of monarchs. Others believed they controlled the Vatican itself. Who was truly ruling Rome? The Pope or the man in black? Whispers turned to accusations, and accusations to edicts. In 1773, under pressure from Europe's monarchs, France, Spain, Portugal, the unthinkable happened. Pope Clement XIV dissolved the Jesuit Order. The Black Pope was silenced, their schools seized, their libraries burned, their members hunted like traitors. The Society of Jesus, once the intellectual sword of the Vatican, was cast into the shadows it had so often been accused of ruling from. But history has a strange rhythm. Empires fall, ideas endure. And while the Jesuits vanished from public life, they did not die. They waited. In exile, they preserved their knowledge, their faith, and their networks. From Russia to China, they adapted, blending into foreign lands, influencing quietly. Then, decades later, when the Church was once again weakened by revolution and doubt, the Jesuits returned. Restored by Pope Pius VII in 1814, they re-emerged not as conquerors, but as survivors. Yet they had changed. They no longer sought dominion over thrones, but control over minds. They became the architects of modern Catholic education, the thinkers who shaped belief, not by decree, but by design. Their schools became the new cathedrals of influence. Harvard had philosophers. The Jesuits built empires of intellect. Still, the myths persisted. The world had changed, but the image of the Black Pope lingered. Conspiracy theorists painted him as the puppet master, behind the Vatican's power, manipulating popes, presidents, and prime ministers. Some saw him as the hidden hand in world politics, guiding global agendas under the banner of faith. To others, he was merely the misunderstood general of a disciplined order, bound by faith, not by ambition. In the modern age, the Jesuits' reach extended further still. They shaped education in America, influenced political thought in Europe, and inspired reform within the Church itself. Their alumni included scientists, presidents, and revolutionaries alike. And then came the greatest twist of all. In 2013, the world watched as a Jesuit was elected to the papacy for the first time in history. Pope Francis, the man once ruled by the Black Pope, had become the Pope himself. For some, it was poetic justice. For others, proof that the Jesuits' long game had finally succeeded, that the shadow had stepped into the light. But the truth, as always, lies somewhere between devotion and deception. The Jesuit story is not one of control. It is one of survival, of men who believed that to serve God, one must understand the world, who wielded intellect like a sword and obedience like armor. And so the legend of the Black Pope remains, half truth, half myth, echoing through the marble halls of Rome and the whispers of history. Is he the Church's hidden general, or merely its most loyal servant? The answer depends on where you stand, in the light of faith or in the shadow of power. Centuries pass, and yet the shadow of the Black Pope refuses to fade. In the digital age, power wears a new mask, no longer cloaks and crowns, but data and influence. And still, the Jesuits endure. Their members serve in universities, political think tanks, humanitarian missions. They stand beside the poor in South America and in lecture halls across the West. But beneath the surface, that same quiet position remains. The art of shaping thought, not through force but through persuasion. Their methods, forged in the fires of the Counter-Reformation, still echo today: education, discipline, subtlety. The Jesuits do not shout. They listen, observe, and adapt. They have been expelled more than 80 times from nations across history. Yet they always return, stronger, wiser, unseen, until it is too late to ignore them. What makes them so enduring? Perhaps it is their founder's vision, Ignatius of Loyola's belief that every act, no matter how small, could serve a divine mission. To teach, to write, to heal, to debate, all were weapons in the war for souls. And though centuries have passed, that war has never truly ended. Modern conspiracy theories claim that the Black Pope still commands global elites, that the Jesuits influence intelligence agencies, world banks, and the Vatican itself. But these stories often say more about humanity's fear of hidden power than about the order itself. The Jesuits' true influence lies not in manipulation, but in mastery, of knowledge, of language, of faith. The current superior general, often still called the Black Pope, wears no crown, commands no army, yet his words reach millions. Behind him stands one of the oldest, most disciplined networks on earth, a society built not for fame, but for purpose. From the ashes of suppression, they built universities. From exile, they shaped diplomacy, and from silence, they learned to speak with timeless authority. Look closely at the threads of history, and you will find them woven everywhere, guiding missions to China, mapping the stars, reforming education, defending theology. Wherever the Church sought to understand, the Jesuits were there. They remain, as they always were, a paradox. Saints and scholars, rebels and loyalists, servants and strategists. And so the question echoes. Does the Black Pope still rule from the shadows? Perhaps not as ruler, but as reminder. A symbol of the Church's eternal tension between faith and power, between humility and control. The Society of Jesus was never merely an order. It was a mirror held up to humanity's hunger for meaning. And whether loved or feared, its reflection remains as sharp as ever. For in every age there will be a need for those who think deeply, act quietly, and believe absolutely. And in that silence, somewhere in the corridors of Rome, the shadow of the Black Pope still moves.